is on, and it is Thursday, March 4th. And, I've seen a lot of things on today on Facebook about marching bands. So if anybody's in the marching band world, there was a lot of stuff today on March 4th. My name is Sue Peterson, and I'm here in the Michigan district of Kiwanis, in Lansing, where I have a lot of snow on the ground because I live on the wrong side of the street for the sun. So it'll be gone soon. But I want to thank everybody and welcome you to tonight's Kiwanis Let's Talk. And I invite you to put in the chat your name and your district, because we have people from all over the world today, which is always great. So we're very excited tonight to have with us John Griffith, who is the Managing Director of Accounts for Markey's Rental and Staging. And as we advertise this program, I talked about the fact that if you've been to one of our international conventions, whether it's for Key Club, Circle K, or Kiwanis, you've seen his team and you probably have seen him running around at work because they're the ones that help us. John has been in the live events industry for 30 years and with Markey's for 28. He's been a technician and a consultant before moving into his current role as the managing director of accounts that leads a team of consultants and works on process improvements for his company. He's been involved with training throughout his career and still focuses on best practices and efficiencies for producing events and great customer service. Kiwanis has been in the picture for John since 1994, when they started with the first Key Club International Convention. He started managing the production of Kiwanis Inter Conventions in 2010 and has been involved with the Kiwanis Convention team ever since. And we joked earlier, that's where I ran for trustee, was in Las Vegas. He's also a member of the Kiwanis Club of Indianapolis, Indiana. He's been in 42 of the 50 states and 8 foreign countries representing Markey's and helping to successfully manage live events. Since the pandemic, Markey's has pivoted to a virtual presence and has many offerings for virtual needs. He's now involved with many internal teams at Markey's developing virtual solutions and teaching methods for successful virtual, hybrid, and studio events. So as many of us have moved to virtual meetings, this is an area that John and his team are very well versed in, and we're glad that they are with us this evening because I think we'll all learn a lot about what's going on. So John, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Well, thank you very much, Sue. It's great to see everybody. Some familiar faces I've seen at conventions before, and here in Indianapolis, it's great to see this kind of program. Very happy to be involved with it. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen because I have slides, because that's always something to involve when you're doing live events. So we don't just have to stare at each other, which is not bad, but presenter support is always nice to have. So, events in a virtual world. So we'll give you a little more background about our company and about us. Markey's Rental and Staging was founded in 1959 by Markey. Her son took over the company and then eventually sold it to the employees. So we're an employee-owned company. We have 225 employees originally before COVID, and now we're down to 146. We are in 18 states, 13 offices, and we became an ESOP in 2012. We're 100% ESOP, so we kind of enjoy the benefits of our hard work, and it's a great retirement. A lot of you may know ESOPs, but it's a great way to be involved in a company that continues to grow, and even in times like this. Usually we do live events. We do live events all over the country and sometimes outside the country. We're used to doing 180 to 190 semis annually out on the road doing events, box trucks, vans, deliveries. We're in-house at many properties, and we do live event production across the country. Project management is another one of our fortes. We get into managing the technical aspects of an event, whether it's IT based or equipment rental or room management or whatever it could be. Markey's in Kiwanis. So like Sue said, I've been involved with the Kiwanis program for a long time. Back in 2010, we did our first Icon in Vegas, and Key Club since '96, Circle K since 2004. And we've also helped with the Florida Decon for Key Club and Kiwanis Convention Florida District since 2010 and 2013. So a lot of familiarity with Kiwanis and its people and the messages and the initiatives you've been involved with over the years, and it's been a real pleasure to be involved with the group. So, transitioning to virtual. So we early on, once the pandemic hit, we were forced to develop our virtual presence and use all the skills we had to create a new business model. We've done virtual for years, even back in the days when we did satellite uplinks and streaming out in very low resolution to educational conferences because they had the bandwidth back then. Well, now almost everyone has good bandwidth. And so it's apropos that the pandemic hit at a time where we all could do things virtually. If it happened, 20 years ago, it might have been really different on how business was done. But live events did go away almost overnight for us. And so we could only look at the equipment on our shelves and not really do much with it. So many folks were furloughed, and many companies like ours across the nation were forced to adapt to this environment or to close up shop, and many of them did. We lost about 80% of our revenue in a matter of weeks, and we also had to make drastic changes just to stay afloat. And as anybody who's in any kind of hospitality industry or any kind of industry that's affected by gathering, it really is a hard hit. So we developed MVP, which is Markey's virtual presence. And that's consists of our major components, which is we develop studios, we enhanced our creative services, which helps people create content for the virtual world. MVP Productions, which are all the technicians and the equipment that still produce behind the scenes for virtual events, just like we did live events. And our MVP platform, which is kind of a conference platform you go to watch events. So that's enough for the commercial about Markey's, but basically let's give you some background on how we have pivoted, which is the word everyone hates to say now, because pivot's kind of one of those things we've had to say for almost a year now. But our transition to virtual had to happen, and we've done pretty well with it. So events in a virtual world. What do we do now that we're virtual? So that leads us to today. We have endured the hardest times of the pandemic on the events industry. Over the last 10 months, we've offered multiple offerings, and many companies like ours offer multiple offerings for virtual, focused on hybrid world as well as virtual, and eventually back to live events. So what are you? Are you an event taker or an event maker? So as you're being in the audience, you may be asked to be a presenter at some point, or planning a conference or planning an event, or just an attendee in an event. So I hope to focus this discussion about how it affects you as an audience member, as well as you as a presenter or a planner. So just know that most of the focus is for the technical support world, because that's kind of our world. So we support event planners to make attendees have a good experience. Virtual events. So will we all be wearing headsets and attending virtual events? Ready Player One style or Total Recall style? Probably not. Virtual environments are extremely expensive and they'll take a lot of time to create. They're very cool and very neat. If anyone's ever experienced a virtual or VR headset, it's pretty immersive. And a lot of people think that's what events are going to be, to where I can walk around virtually and experience things as they happen. But as you can imagine, each one of those kind of things is a created environment. It takes a lot of graphic content, a lot of time and effort to do. Most likely, we will be and have been watching webinars and online content at something like this, or more TED Talk style of online content. And we've done this for years, but some are only using this method to get their messaging out, not doing any kind of hybrid or even planning to come back live. Virtual content's going to be here for some time. So the first thing to consider when doing any event is, what is your aim? Who are you presenting to? What are you presenting and why? Messaging still needs to be done. So how do you do it? And then finally, what is the result? What do people get out of it? Is it education? Is it selling something? Whatever it may be, the first thing to start with is what's your aim. So you have a message that needs to get out. You need to offer training or information. A lot of certification and accreditation is being done online now. So registration to platforms and conferences are still very important, because that's how they track the fact that you were there and what you saw and what you watched. Awards, galas, and fundraisers are a big component of virtual world, because they all still want to do these ceremonies where they get together and they raise money for whatever cause, or they want to give out awards to the best and the brightest. All these things are still happening, but in a virtual environment. And then have to meet in person versus meeting virtually. So some people still say, I need a certain amount of delegates, or I need a certain amount of live people that have to be present in order to get my business done. Well, that's where hybrid comes in. And we've done a few over the last summer. We had a few. In fact, Kiwanis Council last year was a hybrid event. That was one of our only hybrids events of 2020 until November, December. They started to come back, and now they're really coming back. People are starting to get vaccinated, and they're starting to mitigate the risks with social distancing and mask wearing, and people are certainly taking it seriously now, and they're able to get some live interaction going, but all of those interactions are involving some sort of virtual content. So some do's and don'ts real quick on the virtual events. So the best thing I can suggest early on is do get the right virtual event planner or partner, a company who has experience in managing something beyond what we're witnessing now, which is just a multi-person Zoom web conference where we all can contribute, we all can chat, we can see each other. It's very interactive. But if you can imagine, if you get into the hundreds and thousands of attendees, you really can't organize something like this and manage it very well. And then if you're bringing in content, videos, slides, multiple speakers, people from different areas, it kind of needs to be managed behind the scenes. So the right virtual event partner is very important. So don't forget about the story and the format. Why are you there? What's going on? Staying on message and on point. That helps keeps audiences engaged and gets your message out. So do use tools to encourage audience participation. There's a lot of things out there, a lot of integrations, and I'll talk on those in a little bit. But polling and questions and answers and surveys, lead retrieval can still be done in a virtual exhibit hall, sometimes with more impact than a live exhibit hall. So don't make it a one-time event. As this program has shown, repeated events lead to more engagement, lead to more participation, because it's something people can count on, and they get a lot of variety out of it. So repurposing content extends your virtual event investment. So a lot of people make programs on demand after they're live, and that's very valuable. So do get sponsors involved. Sponsors are very important to pay for a lot of the things that this can cost, and companies still want to be a sponsor entity, and they also still want to give money so people will know that this company sponsored that. That's important to them. And don't forget about metrics. Metrics is a method of reporting.
Yeah, this one's a Kiwanis doohickey. Told you it's like constant Zoom meetings anymore. You can't get anything done because you're spending tons of Zoom meetings.
John, you need to unmute. I think we muted everybody and it muted you as well.
There, I'm back. Perfect. So sorry about that. So pros and cons of virtual event. The pros of the fact that things are virtual now is, when you're doing an event, you don't have to worry about housing. You don't have to worry about feeding everyone. No, you don't have to worry about transportation, how to get everybody there. And of course, all the venue rentals that go on, all the massive expense of hotel ballrooms and convention centers. The cons of certainly everyone's noticed is limited networking. You don't get to get that face-to-face action when we all strive for so much in this kind of environment. And that non-immersive experience, how can I really experience what it's like in Toronto if I'm not in Toronto. You know, it's really a different world. Misunderstood retention. It's tough to understand how people are getting the information in a virtual environment versus being in person. And then tracking attendance issues. It is difficult sometimes to see how many courses I go to, even with metrics and analytics. It's tough to see how many things I as an attendee have actually seen and attended in order to get credit for it or whatever it could be. So what does it take to pull off? So any web conference, any webinar basically takes equipment, labor, and licensing. That's pretty much the core needs for any virtual event. And then you just get more complex and more elaborate, the more complex and elaborate the event may be. So talk about cost real quick. So virtual certainly has a cost because licensing, equipment, and labor. It's all someone working towards making an event happen, just like in the live events industry. So that just some stats for you. The average cost per attendee for a large conference can be $1,000 to $1,500 per person. Medium conferences can be $500 to $1,000 per person. It really just depends on how robust and how complex the event is, how many concurrent sessions are happening at once. All the things can lead to a lot of cost. So some other virtual costs, some stats for you. The most popular type of virtual event is small gatherings. This is followed by networking events and roundtable discussions. And that was surprising to me because a lot of conferences have a hard time incorporating that in their platforms for virtual events. 67% of the virtual events use external customers or speakers. So people who present remotely, the speaker circuit, presenter circuit is still very busy with doing events. They're just not doing them in person. They're doing them remotely. And a lot of these guys are really good at canning these, and they're doing so well that, that you don't even know they're not live. 65% of event organizers accept sponsorship for their events. So remember, that's important. So have someone else pay for your event. 91% of event organizers allow sessions to be sponsored to generate extra sponsorship revenue, and that's important. Large virtual conferences, 65% of markets need more than 6 weeks to promote an event to drive attendance. And then mediums to smaller events, at least 3 to 6 weeks to plan. Turning around, you know, if you're having a corporate internal meeting, you can put together a meeting pretty quick. But when you start wanting to get people to attend outside, it takes some time to plan to get the messaging out, as well as build the platform that you're going to present on. 76% of all marketers say that email is the single most effective way to drive registrations. So email is a good way to blast the information out there, direct them to whatever way you have for them to sign up, and that also gets you an idea of how it's going, how many people are going to attend, and how popular your blast was. And then audience engagement is the largest challenge when it comes to virtual events. The next biggest challenge is interaction, and that's obvious because people can't really interact well without doing a lot of clicking, a lot of working to find the people to interact with. Groups like this, you know, you really limit it to about 20 to 30 people at the most before it starts to get chaotic when everyone wants to talk. So just a couple more stats because everyone loves stats. 38% of marketers say they run into technical problems when hosting virtual events. And that's a heartbreak for me because that's my world. And we always want to make sure that events, you know, problems don't happen, but you know, power goes out, internet goes out, just like in the live events world, people drop off, you know, connections happen, things go wrong. So how do you react to that in a virtual world? Sometimes you're just dead in the water and all of a sudden the screen goes blank. So that's something you have to consider and what to do when it does. 80% of people joined events for educational purposes. The next biggest reason for joining is networking, which is another reason why events like this is so important because it gets people together, gets everyone on our minds, and you can still get a message out while you're doing it in a collaborative manner. The average no-show percentage of virtual events is 35%. This is slightly higher than in-person events. So that's not so surprising considering some people, their daily schedules and work schedules just get in the way of attending things they thought they could attend virtually. So most companies allocate between 10 and 20% of their marketing budget to virtual events, which is interesting. It's a lot considering a lot of people's revenue was down during this time, but still they need to get messages out and end up having to cover virtual events for it. The majority of budgets for virtual events is spent on the hosting platform. And the second largest, of course, is speakers and moderators. And 65.9% of event organizers make their virtual events available on demand after the fact. And that's important for people who couldn't make it, to make that content still on demand. And there are methods for, if you do have a registration fee, you can still charge them for that online content after the fact. And then finally, 90% of virtual event organizers use surveys to measure attendee satisfaction. And I would think that would be invaluable to find out what they liked, what they didn't like, what they remembered. It really helps you the next time you want to do something like this. So virtual and hybrid. So virtual events came in the age of 2020, but the future is hybrid. There will probably be a virtual aspect to most events going forward. We've had to cancel events all the way through 2022. Things we knew were going to happen are still canceling out that far. Many events are going hybrid or totally virtual, even after everyone's vaccinated. It's just the way people are going to do things, just because they found the method by, hey, I can work from home now. I can also attend things from home. And that's just the budgets for travel it's going to take a long time to get back to what it was. Hybrid is the combination of virtual and live. So costs will be higher for technical execution in a hybrid environment. Everything that you were doing for a live event still happens live, but now you're adding a virtual component to it. So you're streaming out what you're doing, you're bringing in remote presenters, you're attending live or virtually. I have to build a platform for those who are attending virtually that mirrors that live experience. So it can get more costly. So think about this way when you're doing hybrid. All the things I talked about earlier that that are pros to doing a virtual: the housing, the food, the transportation, venue rental, entertainment, all the printing and signage, security, everything that's involved with a live event. You're also adding high internet charges, more than just regular Wi-Fi for attendees, virtual label, virtual equipment, licensing, and then of course the conference platform. So how does this work? How do we do things behind the scenes to make these things good? So quickly for some definitions, because there's a lot of terms out there, I just want to make sure we're talking about the same thing. So webcasting, web streaming, live streaming is all kind of the same thing. That's generally a single location, streaming to an audience almost anywhere in the world. It's usually not active two-way engagement. It can be coupled with web-based Q&A and some other integrations, but mostly it's streaming an event out that people can see. Web conferencing is what we're doing right now. Bring multiple presenters from various locations, two-way conversations. It may not be feasible for an entire audience, but depending on the size of the audience, you can get away with something like this. So streaming software. We're using Zoom right now. Most of the world is familiar with Zoom, and if you bought stock early in Zoom, you're probably pretty happy about that. But Zoom is a very easy platform to maneuver for just about anyone on computers or on mobile devices. And so a lot of people use Zoom as the engine for how to conference. But what we do is we use Zoom to do our web conferencing, and we do Vimeo for our streaming. So I can have a meeting like this, and we're able to single someone out, pin them, which makes them full screen, and then I can stream that out on Vimeo. That way I can have an unlimited number of attendees, and I can incorporate slides, graphics, videos, all in high definition, which Zoom's video cameras don't do high definition. I can share my slides right now, which are high def, but streaming it out is only to a limited audience. So even a Zoom webinar has a number limit on its audience depending on the license you own. So Vimeo, I can pay a license and have that audience be unlimited. But each service, whatever it could be, any of the number ones you've heard of, some of them are here on the screen, some of them, there's many out there, but all of them have licensing fees. So that's a thing to consider about what platform works best for you. Now, web conferencing, utilize the standard Zoom platform like we're doing now. It can be very easy or it can be very difficult. It really knowing what the group wants to see and do is important. You can allow multiple presenters to present from their own locations. Attendees can log in from almost anywhere. We can do multiple rooms because Zoom can do breakout rooms, and we can have our own discussions in each one. And it's relatively cost effective. And then everyone is very familiar with how Zoom works, and everyone likes to see each other this way. So a virtual platform. A virtual platform is similar to a learning management system. If you've ever seen one of those where you go online, you can watch videos, read about content, and just get informed on a topic. It's usually branded because someone's sponsoring the site or someone's putting it on. And there's a lot of attempts at interaction by community pages where people can email each other or chat or link to each other or find out more information, or contact groups. And then there's a landing page. A landing page is a simple single website that is basically just somewhere that I can host a stream that I can send everybody to. That's very not complex at all, very simple. And then a conference app is something that you would take or you would use at a live event, where you can use it on your phone to see the schedule, to see a map, to see who's speaking where and what, and it really is a companion to you rather than something to watch the event on. And so one of the first questions we ask when we're interviewing a client or customer is, how does the audience view this event? So that tells us a lot about the direction to take the project. So we can do embedded feeds, landing pages, or custom websites, depending on the ask, how complex it is, how many events they have, and if there's registration, because registration is key to a more complex event. So the first thing is an embed code. I can create a video on Vimeo or another streaming platform, get an embed code and plant that on your website, your company's website, or a landing page like I'll talk about next, which just basically makes an iframe, which is the video, and it can play, it's done, you've watched it, and game over. The next is a landing page. Landing page is a single page website. Get a little bit of branding, you get a topic maybe, you get that iframe embed on there, which is the stream, and finally you can add some interaction, like the ability to ask questions or to do a poll or something like that. But that's what a landing page is. And then a virtual platform or custom website can be very complex. It can involve registration, a complex and difficult agenda with multiple sessions per day, concurrent sessions on top of each other, and then interactions with exhibitors, sponsors, each other. It can be very social, very graphic, and can contain a lot of information. And as you can imagine, those get more expensive and can be time-consuming to build. And then the conference app, like I mentioned, just on your phone. They can be very customizable, but it's meant to mirror that virtual platform. It's just not where you watch the content. It's more about how to get around the convention center, what restaurants are good in the city, and a little more information about the presenter you just saw. The virtual platform we use is MVP. It's something that we bought early on as a license and then developed it over time. It's actually a Bizzabo engine that we've adapted to our world, and then we have what we call ESPs, or event support professionals, and they build the site for your event. They brand it, they add the content you want, they organize the agenda, the registration, all the things you need. But there are many platforms out there, and all of them have pros and cons. Most of them have worked out the bugs in the last year to be very, very good platforms to use. On24, Eventry, Pathable, so many out there, you probably have run across them. If you know of the event, and you probably attended something on some sort of virtual platform. So how are these events supported? So we care about the audience experience, whether it's the attendee, the presenter, or our customers, the clients. So the attendee's experience obviously is the end user, people using the site. What does it look like for them? How's the navigation? How's the schedule building? Can they build their own schedule? The interaction and notification, how do they get notified if something changes? So we kind of launch into that. So as an attendee, you want to know that you have these abilities to find out more or to get help. That's all things you want as an attendee. As an event planner, you want a platform or someone to work with you to make that link between the attendee and the event. The presenter's experience is another thing. So in a webinar, a presenter may come into a room like this, and you may make that presenter full screen. But in most webinars, the presenters come via a different method. They come to using a different link. They sometimes would just wait for it to start and they go, they don't know what to do. So what we try to do is we meet with presenters ahead of time and we run them through the mill of their internet connection, their lighting, their background, their microphone, make sure everything's working. And then on the day of the event, we'll bring them into a room like this that we're in right now and talk with them. We'll say, hey, we're going to put you on in 5 minutes. You're going to go live. At that point, they can ask questions. We can also have our clients in the room and we can meet with them and then push them into the live room for the show. So their experience is equally important to us and many companies like ours as the attendees. And then finally, the customer's experience or our client's experience. How do they experience the conference? Most of them just sit back and watch, but we want to engage them to make sure that any changes come up, we know about them, we're able to inform them if there's any issues, a speaker didn't show up. So we try to make their experience equally good as everyone else. Another thing that folks do, many companies pivoted to studio options. A lot of people have warehouses with a lot of equipment and the equipment's not going out, so it's available. And there's a lot of technical expertise out there that aren't doing anything. So we're building studios. We've built 3 studios in our facility in Indianapolis, and then we have 5 other states with warehouses in that we built studios in, and even a couple in the hotels that we have or we are in-house at. And it's been very popular. People still want to get that professional stage look, and studios help with that to get the people to get the environment of excellent lighting, excellent cameras, great audio, good backgrounds, and push that message out, makes it a much more professional look than someone doing it from their home office or bedroom or wherever it could be. Our studios all have some sort of backdrop, whether it's an LED like this or a draping backdrop to allow for messaging, for moving backgrounds, for depth of field backgrounds. Here's an example of a Delta Faucet here in Indiana doing an event here. This is the stage side shot of it, but then the finished product shot with the LED background makes it very immersive. And you're also able to socially distance in a studio, and the entire crew is all masked, and these people are all masked when they're not live. So we run a really interesting and fun ship of studio work, and it's worked very well for us. And we probably have 3 or 4 studio events a week. There's another example of the same kind of effect. You can see on the screens in the lower part of the image how that looks when you do that LED look with some furniture and setting in front of it. A couple more studio pics, and this is one of our Columbus, Ohio office. It's very intimate and small, but it's very effective. And then finally, Austin, Texas, we have an LED wall behind that one in Texas. Many companies are doing this. That's because they have the gear, they have the expertise, and they have the space. So bringing people in to do studio work is very, very popular. Another thing we do is called a virtual command center. And it's like mission control for NASA. It's a control room that manages all aspects of the virtual event. And these are how these work. So there's a team of project managers, engineers, and technicians that execute various technologies. that are incorporated into the virtual and hybrid event. The team prepares presenters we meet with them in advance, like I mentioned, to make sure they understand the technology. They're called presenter checks. And so if you have 40 presenters that are going to present at a conference, we'll schedule time to meet with each one of them for about 10 minutes. And we'll go over their connection speed, microphone, backdrop, lighting, all the things that are important for a good presentation. That way, when they show up on day of show, there's no issues. We also manage what we call virtual green rooms. I mentioned it briefly just a second ago. This would be the virtual green room, where we're all together as presenters and clients and technicians. And then as we get ready for the show, we can move Sue into the live room and she's presenting. We're all watching in here as future presenters and technicians and clients, because I can make one of these screens program. So instead of everyone watching on the platform as a presenter, the attendees are watching on the platform, the presenters are watching it in the green room. So just like the Tonight Show, you go from green room to live room, back to green room, and then go home. And it works very well, and it keeps everyone informed of what's going on. Another thing that we do is a virtual help desk. So if you have a platform that we're part of, we have someone ready and standing by for attendees with issues, connecting, hearing, knowing where to go, having a problem, or just general questions for the organization. The help desk is like a chat feature that you're able to click on and get immediate response. And that's very helpful, especially on day one of a conference when you get most of your questions. And if everyone has ever been involved with a live event and know about the registration counter, a lot of people go up just for random questions all the time. So it's really helpful to have that in the virtual world. I'll briefly mention integrations, but I'm actually going to describe some for you in a few minutes. So just to know that there are a lot of integrations that go with virtual events, whether it be teleprompting or closed captioning, speaker timers, all the things that you see in a live event can be done virtually. Everything is about signal flow, just like in a live event. Gear flows into gear, comes out on the screens, comes out of the speakers. Same thing for virtual. And then multi-platform broadcasting. So we can be broadcasting in our platform, also on YouTube, on Facebook, all the streaming platforms that the group would like to do. It's very easy to add those components in. So virtual graphics are how we make it look great. And a lot of companies do the same thing. So how you see professional looking webcasts or webinars is people most likely are connecting via some simple web conferencing platform like Zoom. These are all examples of Zoom meetings with graphics overlaid on top of them and then pushed out streaming in Vimeo or some platform like that. The top left one is a two-person Zoom meeting, but we cover up the Zoom look so it looks nothing like a Zoom meeting and it's looking very professional. And those graphics can be custom to however many people are on screen at once or what's happening on any given day. The second one at the top is an example of someone sharing their slides, but we're still able to overlay graphics. So it looks very professional. And the others are all events that we've done in the past using all the graphics that you would normally see on a screen in a ballroom. So lower thirds showing people's names, watermarks and bugs, and then even tickers. At the bottom right one is a ticker event showing fundraising or how much the particular bid is going out for any kind of online auction. The bottom one in the middle is a pretty interesting one. It was for Matthew McConaughey's MJM 2020 event they raised money. I can't think for the life of me think of what it was for, but it was a very impactful event. He was involved along with, I can never remember their names, but the Mac Brown and Jack Ingram, that's right. And they were live performing separately. All of them were remote, of course, and it turned out to be a great event, and using graphics really made it look very professional. So this is what it looks like on our end. So it's just like behind the stage at the Kiwanis convention, we're bringing all these components in, graphics, videos, and live camera shots, which are now remote camera shots, and incorporating it. But as you can imagine, the more looks we have, the more sources leads to more planning and sometimes more cost because you're adding equipment. Every slide deck or every video playback usually adds a computer to the mix. So instead of taking that camera shot, I'm taking that computer shot. And then what's the transition? So storyboarding your event now becomes very important. Knowing what happens when, what transitions from this speaker to that speaker, what is the filler? Do we have ads? Do we have commercials? All, building your event now involves almost every second of someone's attention. Because if you're not having live content, you want a commercial or an ad or a please stand by, otherwise you're going to lose your audience. And then here's some examples of how we run our virtual command centers. There's several. A lot of them look like a hot mess, but they're usually everyone's got something there that's important to the event, and people are controlling multiple things. This is a particular one I wanted to explain how we did a gala. It was for best places to work, was the group, and people vote on their company to be one of the best places to work. And this, along with other events that have, classically, you go to a gala or you go to a dinner function or a fundraiser and you sit at a table. And this table has your friends and other coworkers or whatever at it, and you're able to converse and have dinner, and then you watch the show together. Well, so what we did was we created a virtual, we'll jump one ahead. Each one of these computers is a virtual table. So they got to talk amongst each other, and they also got to watch the event, but they watched it in their own little room. Then when we actually started to recognize the companies that won, we would tag the company and bring them full screen. So this company won and they could celebrate however they wanted, but this company's table was able to participate as a group. And after they were done, they could go back talking to each other and continue to watch the show. So we tried to make it as close to the live event experience of that table gathering as you could. And then I'll back up two more because I wanted to show this. So these gentlemen are figuring out who's next because we know who won. So we prep the next available table. And we talk to them, say, okay, guys, you're getting ready to go live. Remember to wave and smile. And then we put them live and we're able to make them a part of the show. We've even gone so far as working with the event planners that all these folks got the same meal sent to their houses with a bottle of wine because they had a budget, and they fed them all the same thing so they could experience the same food, the same drink, and the same community spirit of the evening. And then we're able to pin, once again, someone full screen if they are an individual winner, and we're able to do that with graphics around them. This right now, this is not a graphic surrounded image, it's just someone Zoom live. But even with an event, I think that event had about 240 people, and we're still able to find one person, pin them, and then bring them up live when it's their turn to shine. And all that is signal flow. I won't bore you with the semantics of that, but it does take some planning to get all these things to go into something else, be able to be found and then presented. And it works very much like any signal flow for a live event. Next is integrations. So like I mentioned before, there are a lot of things that you can add to a presentation to make it better. And teleprompting is one. I'll show you an example of that. But translation can be done virtually in all virtual events. Question and answer, you can do it like we're doing it now with either chat or just someone can ask a question. Or you can have integrations that build a question. Something that we use a lot is called social Q&A. And I can ask a question and everybody else can see me ask that question and they can vote it up. So that it's a popular question, it goes to the top. someone with the group is a moderator, and they're able to identify those questions first or answer those questions first. Polling is very important, especially for information gathering for your audience, and that's done a lot. Social media wall, I'll explain that in a second. A lot of groups need closed captioning to be able to include all viewers. Slide advance, I can actually present slides here, and I can have Sue advance them from her location. There's simple programs allowed. She can actually do it from her phone or from her computer. So the slides stay high res, they're under our control, and she can advance them just like a presenter would from the stage. Gamification is very popular. It's tough to integrate because it's usually pretty expensive, but you can involve games along with polls, along with lead retrieval to get people networking together and doing different things virtually. Something simple as a speaker timer. I get a speaker timer running right now. I can make a speaker timer for another presenter. So they see it, but no one else does. This is an example of how teleprompting works. If you've never seen teleprompting before, the president uses it all the way down to anyone who wants to read a script from a stage. They usually have it as a downstage monitor or next to the lectern. Some teleprompters are right in the camera, like the picture on the right, where I'm looking right into the camera and I'm able to read the script. The one in the middle is how we do it virtually. I can do a virtual meeting here. I can pin Sue so she's front and center, and I can make one of these windows that we're in a computer with teleprompter on it. And then she can position that right under her camera so she can look in the camera and just look down and read. And it's really effective for people who want to do a professional presentation and still read script. Closed captioning, like I mentioned, I put some companies on here so you can see a lot of these are free. Some of them are do have a cost to them, but these are the automatic closed captions. So they kind of do what the TV does, where it just automatic listens and it's able to caption whatever language we're captioning to. About 80% correct. Any higher than that, you really need a live person doing it. And that can, of course, get expensive, as you can imagine, hiring someone to caption that for you. But we do that service as well. And we also recommend that anything that's truly important or has a lot of medical jargon or names be done by a live captioner. Also, Zoom and Vimeo have caption features in them, so you can caption a lot with the stuff you already use. Like I mentioned, polling and gamification. Poll Everywhere is something that we use a lot, or SurveyMonkey. You can incorporate these in platforms and sites. You can get a lot of data from your viewers on how things go for them. All the information, demographics you want out of them, you're able to get. And then social media wall. A lot of the young kids like to do this. They still want to post social media. So now there's a platform for them to view other people's posts. So what the social media wall is able to do is pull posts or tags from all the sites, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and then collaborate them on a screen that it just keeps changing and changing in and changing out. So it needs to be moderated because anybody can post anything if you don't moderate it. But if it's moderated, you're able to get a lot of social interaction. And we do this a lot on the screens when we're doing live events for kids to post and see their post up on the screen. It's a lot of fun. And finally, I wanted to show you this. So we talked about the virtual immersive event. We still do stuff like this, but it's more about the person's perspective and not the immersed environment. So we have on the top left is a 360-degree camera. And on the top right is a very cheap method of putting your phone in a cardboard box that's branded, putting it on your face, and being in a live event environment. And what this does is allow you to look around in wherever we place that camera, and that camera can move. So it's hard to show you how immersive this is, but you are in the experience. And in some cases, you're able to manipulate where you go, but mostly you're a slave to where the camera is. So and I'll take the camera, my mouse, every time I put the mouse on here to move it to show you, it'll lag, but I bring it off and you can see that that's where we would put a camera, and it's that you're able to be in the environment. So when you do events, when you get to an event, you get the best seat in the house. So we've done graduations where the kids early on last spring couldn't go to their own graduation. So we were able to take a 360-degree camera, put it in the front row, and then everyone would have this view of the valedictorian speaking, of the chancellor speaking, everyone who wanted to be a part of it. And then we actually took the camera, put it on wheels, rolled it across the stage to shake the hand of the chancellor to get the diploma, and rolled it back off so they could at least get that experience. This spring, we're doing graduations, but now grandma can't come. So we're trying to give them a virtual experience to where they can see their grandson or their kid walk across the stage, and they would have this virtual environment so they can look around and see it happen. So this is a more inexpensive way of doing a 360-degree environment at an event where the camera's stationary, but you as a viewer can look around all day long. And it works pretty well, especially considering not being able to be there. Metrics, I mentioned that earlier. Any kind of analytics or reporting from the streaming platform or conference can add to your information and qualify success. A lot of people forget about metrics when they put on an event and they realize, well, how many people watched? You know, how long did they watch? And platforms, and this might scare some people, but don't feel too bad, because data sharing is not really a thing unless you want it to be, especially if you're registering for something. Your group has control of that information. It's not going out to be sold, and it's not going to ads. It's mainly for the group to know what you watched, how long you watched it, and we can get down to attentiveness. So attentiveness is, if I'm watching a webinar and I go click over here on Amazon, that pulls my attention away, and that can be tracked. And that may, you know, some people are a little nervous there, but it really just shows that if you're really paying attention. And for people who need to watch training for accreditation or to get credits for something, or it's something that's very important, we need to make sure they're watching it. So you can test on it, you can do polls in between, but the best way to do is to measure that attentiveness so they can actually get credit for what they saw. So what can I do as an attendee, as a presenter in the virtual world? To being a good presenter. So the components for streaming: internet speed, you're setting your background, lighting, eye contact, framing, and equipment. So as you can see, this person is actually on the BBC in a very messy bedroom with poor lighting, and it's just not a good look. You don't want that if you're going to present. The single most important part about being able to do any kind of webcasting or streaming is internet speed. Wi-Fi is never a good option for streaming. You can view on Wi-Fi at your peril, but to stream out, you really need to be on a hardline connection. And we recommend 5 megabits per second to 10 megabits per second is a good window to be in to be able to stream a reliable presentation. And then anybody at any time can test their speed by going to speed test or just searching any kind of speed test software. It's free online. It'll quickly examine what your connection speed is, and you'll be able to know about that. The next is background. If you use Zoom, you know you can use backgrounds. You can change your background. You can have a lot of fun with it. A lot of people do. But in order to do a good presentation, what you really want is a background with some depth, at least the appearance of depth. The one I have behind me shows kind of that virtual depth. All of these examples show depth, and it really is a great way. With good lighting and depth, you can get a really good presentation. Lighting is crucial in presenting. You can see these examples of improper lighting and how you know, being in front of a window doesn't work, or being underlit doesn't work. And so lighting can really make a difference. And this is a good example of someone who's lit well and someone who isn't. And it's the same person. And then finally, very inexpensively, you can add quality equipment to your personal office, virtual office. An HD webcam, $30 to $50. You can spend more, but you don't need to. And a light is $17, $18, sometimes more than that. But very good lights can make a big difference. And then eye contact and framing. We learn in our industry that if you're going to present well, looking to your subjects is still very important, even in the virtual world. So we're trained to look into the camera, even when we know that we're staring into a black hole of nothingness. But eye contact and framing, always, position yourself well so you're not too close or too far or out of frame. And then that eye contact is really helpful to engage your audience. And equipment. So equipment can get very complex depending on all the things we talked about earlier. But basically, to do a stream from home, you need a camera, an independent one or one that's built in, microphone, independent or built in. You need a computer, so all the things that run the program that allow you to stream, and a streaming device. Now, laptops and some computers already have that streaming device included. But we often use an external streaming device because they're more reliable. They don't need updated, and it's part of our signal flow. Usually, the computer is one step before the streaming device. We end up taking whatever we're doing on the computer and then hitting a streaming device to stream that out. And a lot of presenters will do remote presenter kits, and companies like ours will rent these out. They can ship anywhere. And you can set it up in your home. If anyone watched the NFL draft last summer, every high-profile draftee had 2 or 3 of these kits at their location. The coaches had 2 or 3, and that way you get 1 or 2 different shots of the coaches, the general managers, the players who were drafted, and they all contain a screen, a light, a good camera and connection, and it worked really, really well. Just know that if you want to do a professional stream and you can't find a studio, a remote presenter kit can be sent to you. And so, can I summarize? Absolutely. So what can you do as a presenter to make a great virtual presentation? So overcoming the challenges is pre-production communication and assistance is the key. Cover all the bases and plan for challenges so when it's showtime, you can be successful. Cost effectiveness is subjective. So what your message, how valuable is your message is to getting out. But virtual events can be planned around most budgets. You can just simplify what you're trying to do rather than doing all the elaborate bells and whistles to make it fantastic, but still very, very valuable. And then communicate early to get buy-in to your attendees and your presenters so you can get them involved. What we preach here always is managing expectations. It's really a conversation sometimes to talk people off the ledge of wanting to do something that they've seen on TV. They want to do the Oscars, but they have a budget for a slide projector and a screen. Time is everything. The more planning time you have, the more successful you're going to be. We do 30 days out for any kind of build, and that's pretty much standard across the spectrum. Multiple conversations are needed because you find out from the answers we give you that more questions will come. And so we continue our conversations along the way. We're in conversations right now with the Kiwanis convention team about the summer and how that's going to look and where it's going to be and how we're going to make it success, whether we can be some people in person or some people virtual. So many conversations sometimes make it happen. And then it's tough for people who don't do this all the time to visualize what it's going to look like. So to be able to understand that, and as an attendee of something, you want to ask, how's it going to look for me? How's the experience going to be for me? I want to know. And hopefully you'll be able to see a demo or an example of how that's going to look. And as an event planner, they need to know that so they know what to sell or what to advertise. And if you break it down to the elements, if you have 15 sessions that you need to do you do all of them at the same time? Do you split them up over 3 days? So you break it down to each element, because each element costs the time, the labor, the equipment, and the licensing in order to do it. So to manage a budget in the virtual world, you really need to manage that schedule and that agenda. A lot can be done with time and communication, and things will always change or alter closer to the event. It happens all the time. So just be ready for that. It's not the end of the world when someone has to drop off. We're used to that. A lot of companies are used to that. As an attendee, sessions that you really wanted to go to might be postponed or canceled or moved. It's just the way of the world in this kind of environment. And then, like I mentioned before, communicate early to get that buy-in from presenters and attendees alike. This is one of my favorite things we tell clients, and we try to be real polite when we say it, but do you want cost? You get cost, time, and money, or I'm sorry, cost, time, and quality. You get to choose two. You don't get all three. So if you want it cheap and you want it quick, it won't be very good. If you want it really good and you got a lot of time, then and it's going to cost a lot. So that's kind of how we try to describe when people need things to manage their expectations. And then ask for a scope of work. We do a scope of work to describe what you're getting. If you're going to do an event and you have a platform involved, describe all the elements that I'm getting so I know all the things that are involved in it. And then there's always going to be scope change, and that can add cost or take away costs. It's just important to know what it's about. And then a summary, can virtual world events be difficult and expensive? Yes, they can. Does it have to be? Certainly not. Remember your aim when you're planning an event or attending an event. What are you going to get out of it? Know your audience and platform. If you're an attendee, surf around that platform. Try to get the most out of it, because there's probably a lot of content buried somewhere just because it's not obviously shouting at you. It's there somewhere, and you sometimes need to search around and look for it. And as a planner, if you're planning an event or presenting, know your audience. Who are you speaking to, what they're going to get from it, and how to stay engaged with them after the fact. Always explore to find out more. Ask the questions, reach out to people who know. And the big question is, virtual going to be around for a while? Absolutely. We're probably going to be doing this for many years. A hybrid will probably be the popular thing to do, being that people won't be able to send all their people like they used to conventions and trade shows. So there'll be a virtual aspect to a lot of things going forward. And will it replace live events totally? No. We will not be able to do without being around each other. We need that interaction. We need that handshake and that hug. So it's not gonna replace it totally. It's just gonna be part of the world going forward. So we all look forward to the times where we can all get together and hang out. So, any questions?
Oh, yes, we got a few, John. And I will tell you, I should have talked to you before we started all these things many, many moons ago, right? If we only would have known that, right? But great information. I took lots of notes. And I think the biggest thing for all of us to remember is, why are we there, right? That's the big thing we talk about. So we got a few questions in the chat. For Kiwanis clubs that are returning to meet in person but wish to offer Zoom call-in capability, you mentioned some of the equipment that's best to enhance the meeting experience. Do we need a multi-directional conference mic? If you want to go ahead and there you go.
It's multi-directional conference mic is great, but you may as well just get a few boundary mics, because the farther away you are, the harder it is to hear, just like in real life. If you're doing a round, you're in a council in a round, a one conference mic or a boundary mic, as they're called, per table or per side usually does pretty good, so everybody can hear. We actually do conference mics where every individual will have a push to talk mic. And that works really well. It just depends on how many people how far they are away, because it's all about distance, because you start picking up room noise and air handling and the rustling of papers, and all of a sudden you can't be heard. So the more mics, the better. With more mics, you need a mixer. So a lot of people can do that on their own, just run a few different mics into a mixer, listen to that on headphones, test it, and then you should be good to go.
Okay. Do clubs that host Zoom fundraising events need to worry about playing music that is likely licensed?
If you're going to play something back that's going to go on social media, like Facebook or YouTube, and you play copyright music, they will bounce you. Most streaming platforms don't have that limit. Technically speaking, you're not supposed to play copyright music, but you're a closed audience, so you can play whatever you want. Streaming out is up to you, how you do it. Where people view it is where the trick comes in. If they view it on Facebook, you can't play Lady Gaga, it'll go away. But if you're streaming on a platform that's controlled, if you're doing it in Zoom, you're doing a Vimeo, watching the stream on a website or a landing page or something like that, do whatever you want.
All right. Many of our districts quickly shifted to Zoom conventions this past August, and most did not charge participants anything to register. Now, with the feeling to upgrade audiovisual equipment and the need to charge a little and endeavor to cover, we got to start looking at expenses. I've heard some Kiwanis, there's some concern that they won't pay because it was free last summer. And how do you combat the old adage that why buy the cow when the milk is free?
Sure. Well, I would remind everyone what they couldn't do in the meeting they had, and say we would like to get a more professional look or a better experience for you, the viewer. And with that, there's a cost. And getting the message out, that's the point. If you can get it out in the same way in a room like this where it's super free, or at least very low cost, sure, go ahead, you can do that. But when you start wanting multiple people to go to multiple sessions and have a presenter have a professional look that's recorded, and you want to track that, because that's important too, it can add costs to it. And then the more bells and whistles you add, the more interactions you add, it adds more cost. So it just depends on what you want out of it. And
I think the more you add to it without charging anybody, they're going to want more next year for the same price of free.
Exactly. And just like, if you go to a convention and you get an A tier entertainment act, it's going to cost more than the C tier you got the year before.
Right.
It's just the nature of what you want your experience to be. And budgets are very important, especially in service organizations, not for profits, but the experience is also important, and we want those to be memorable.
Very true. Okay, one of the aspects of ICON, as you know, is that we all enjoy the debate and passing of bylaw amendments. How does this work with virtual large number of voting delegates, non-voters, multiple speakers? Is there a way to do that type of stuff virtually?
Certainly. So we did this with Kiwanis Council last year, and we'll probably do some of it this year again. We've done several events that have delegates and parliamentary procedure and all the things that warrant objections and pros and cons comments and amendments to bylaws. So how we do it is we do Zoom meetings like this for a section of delegates. That could be all the delegates or delegates for a district or whatever. So the delegates that couldn't be there in person are in a Zoom room like this. We're all watching the show. The chair knows that we're incorporating the virtual event. So all it does is really it slows the process down a little bit. So as they open it up for objections or pros and cons, they open it up to the floor, and then we go to the pro room, and we've already identified Sue has a pro comment. So we'll pin her, and then we'll push her to the room. So it just takes a little bit longer to do a little bit of that, maybe a minute to get that all set up and go. And then we hear her pro comment. and then we do a comment. And then we can do the voting or the polling of the amendment voting or the elections voting with third-party software, because we've done that at convention before, where you have the keypad and that can be integrated. Or you can do polling right within the virtual platform and get the same information. That's how you do your voting and your elections and your amendment passes or fails. The objections are the tough one. When someone wants to object to something out of the blue, it just takes a little bit longer, because you, being a delegate, can object in the meeting room here. I'm watching you as a technician. I see that Sue has an objection. So I let my representative in the room know, who's like, I'll say a person representing all the delegates. That person notifies the chair, we have an objection. And then I either make Sue live, or that person gets the objection and then reads it live in the room. Either way works. All it really does is slow the process down a little bit, which makes business session even longer, which is no fun.
Right.
But it can be done. It's just, you just need to take a little more work and a little more attention to how that works. And so making sure the delegates know where they need to go virtually, so they get the same, opportunity to comment like everyone else. So we've done it. It's a little clunky, but it works. And the ultimate result is everything gets done.
Everything gets done. So yeah, it's just a matter of the kind of the behind the scenes people that are handling that end of it. Okay, so here's a simple question. When someone uses a virtual background and moves even a bit, parts of the individual disappear. What can we as home presenters do to eliminate this?
Green screen. If you put a green screen, which is basically a cloth of green that's lit, if you light it, it'll eliminate a whole lot of, my hand goes away or my shoulder disappears, because light, Zoom is able to block out what it thinks is background, but with a green screen, it knows exactly where that background is, and it really helps. Also, if you're lit well, the background will be absorbed by Zoom. And that's a real good feature of Zoom and platforms like it that are able to do that. The more light on you and not on the background makes the Zoom take over that background.
Okay. How are people enticing people to attend a convention in person when it's more convenient and safe and less expensive to stay home and participate virtually?
Just that networking, that camaraderie, that wanting to be with other people and to see this. I mean, people pick convention sites because they're interesting.
Right.
We want to go to these places to experience them. And especially with groups like Kiwanis, I mean, there's just so much that people get out of being around each other and learning from each other and just seeing people they haven't seen in a while. Kiwanis is about inclusiveness, and many groups just strive for that. Even in the corporate world, they just need to be able to be together.
I think when we go ahead.
I was gonna say, but a lot of companies are saying, I'm not going to send anybody to that convention this year or to that trade show, because I'll just get the information online. That's how it's going to be. But I think eventually they're going to start saying, okay, I see the need to get my sales team out there and meet people, stuff like that.
And I think that Kiwanis, I'm joking, but they're going to have to put in a lot of extra networking time when we finally do go back to meeting in person, because they won't be able to conduct business. Everybody will be trying to catch up with everybody,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
When everybody gets back.
Yep. It's going to be hugs all around.
It'll be hugs all around. Lanton from Ohio says that they are doing their Ohio Mid-Year Education Day on March 20th virtually using a platform called Hopin. They are charging $25 per person for early registration, and now registration is $35. They have 201 people registered as of tonight. The planning committee has done a great job of putting together an excellent program with great workshop presenters and keynote speakers that they probably could not have if the event was in person.
I tell you, that's true. And by the way, shout out to Lanton's. Good to see you, buddy. It's been a while. Go Buckeyes, huh? All right, good to see you. Exactly. A lot of presenters are able to do things. We've got groups that are able to get A-list celebrities because they're home, they're available, and they're able to join these things. So I can understand the platform going up in registration because they're probably offering more. Right. And that's happened a lot. And actually, that's a pretty cheap registration, honestly, for a platform. And that's good to see.
Okay, with that, I'm going to open it up. If anybody has questions, you're welcome to unmute yourself or raise your hand and we'll talk. And I will tell you that I know that has helped us for these Thursday night programs. I have been able to bring in people from Hawaii, and we talked to Tony earlier, who's here with us from Australia. People are talking all over the world now, and
Yeah.
you can bring in other people because you're right. You're asking them to be there for 20 minutes or half an hour, but they don't have the 4-hour airplane. You're cutting
Right.
expenses, and being there in person is just so much. Like I said, a lot of times if you're sitting in a big room, you're watching them on a screen anyway, right?
Yep. Absolutely.
You're watching them on a screen. So questions, if anybody has questions, I'm looking for hand raises.
Good. Everyone got.
I think
the
information was, as I say, the information was great. I was trying to take notes, which I shouldn't do at the same time, but I did. But just some of the basic information. And I think the stats were great to know that, there's a 35% no-show rate. And when you think about that and when you have people signed up, right? What's there? All right, Mr. Gary from Louisiana, Mississippi, West Tennessee has a question. Go ahead and unmute yourself, Gary. You're on.
Yeah, okay. The question about the green screen, are those something you can buy or something you can make, or
You can, you need a kind of a certain color green you want to get. You can get it on Amazon, super cheap. They used to be real expensive because they were studio use only and it was a trick. But now you can go to your photography shop and get a green screen or order it online. Or you can buy a tablecloth that looks kind of like the green you want and hang it behind you and light it. And it works just as good.
okay?
They make some that are pull up.
Yep. You want it flat. If it's wrinkled or draped, then it'll have shadows on it, which is why I say light it, which means you don't need to specifically light it. As long as it's lit enough to see the green, Zoom and other platforms will make it go away and replace it with the background. Because right now, I'll just show you what I got going on here. This is my office. Pretty boring. Don't like it. Rather use the virtual. But then you can get crazy. You can be in the office show. You can be on Parks and Recreation. You can do lots of things. You can be in the catacombs. You can be on a beach. You know the things. It's fun. But professional presentations, good backgrounds make the difference.
I'm gonna work on mine.
Yeah.
I'm gonna work on mine.
And you can download in Zoom, you're able to download content,
Right.
video or pictures into your background. So that's a good handy thing to do.
They have some pretty standard ones, and I know most of the colleagues that I Zoom with are always in some sunny beach location all at the same time.
Yep.
Okay, another question. So a green screen and a halo light will eliminate many of the visual issues we novices experience.
That's what I have right now. I have a halo light. I don't have a green screen even. I just have good lighting in the room. So yeah, absolutely.
Green screen and a halo light. Perfect. Oh, Chuck. Yeah, okay, Chuck from Florida.
Yes,
you are
I know.
always on a sunny beach.
That's a fact. I know Chuck. I know he's on a sunny beach.
Brad says, great, jam-packed with timely information. Boy, we have really hit things.
Yeah.
With everything going on for midwinters coming up now, and as people start to get ready for whatever district convention brings us here
so
in the.
You need Sparty in your backdrop.
Well, you know what? So I will tell you, Sparty has to have a blue backdrop, because if we put Sparty in front of a green backdrop, he disappears. And that was always a thing. People are like, Sue, why do you have a blue? When we worked with some of our companies, they're like, well, we'll send you green screen. We're like, don't send a green screen because he disappears.
Yeah, that's a trick. Also, if you wear green shirt or your green dress and you're trying to do Zoom, it's going to go away.
Right.
You try to do a background. So that's another thing to think about. Like the
So,
Queen did that a year or so ago. She did a video message with a green dress and the internet went wild, replacing that with all kinds of things.
yes. So colors, when you talk about, let's talk about colors. Great colors to wear?
Don't wear a lot of complex tight plaid because it'll cause a moire. And it's, kind of move. Like your tie has a tight pattern on it in video. Most Zoom cameras, or Zoom doesn't do a lot of high res camera, but there are software out there, web conferencing, that is very high res. And if you've ever seen someone on TV that has a tight knit jacket or tie, it'll just dance with a moire pattern. That's just because the camera shutter speed is not catching up with real life, and it's very distracting. But other colors, black isn't bad, but all black is not seriously good. All white is never good. You never want your clothes to be brighter than your face. Just watch people on TV, look what they wear. They know how to do it.
Very good. So what if someone has to, let's talk about convention. I know last year that the candidates submitted videos for their speeches. What's the best way to do something like that?
So you can pre-record it yourself by setting up a Zoom meeting and just recording it, or record without being in Zoom, just record on whatever free programs out there for recording video. Or you can contact someone like us, and we do just pre-recordings, and we'll set up a session like me and Sue. I'll pin her, she'll do her thing, I'll record it, I'll make it into a video, and then she has it. And we do that through Zoom or through any platform that's virtual. It's better to record it like without doing a virtual event. Just record it with a camera in an environment that you like, say what you want to say with good light. Cell phones, not really that great. The newer cell phones have fantastic cameras and great, but it's all about keeping it steady.
Right.
So if you can get it mounted and not be too far away from it, and also the audio. So if you have a microphone, it works so much better than 8 feet away trying to get it, because you hear the air, you hear the ambient noise. It's better to have a microphone and a camera with some good light, record it, make it into a video file, send it in.
Wonderful.
Did you all record the ones last year? Because it seemed like, my recollection was a couple were pretty choppy.
Yeah, so we
Like Terry
recorded
White's.
them all, but we were at the mercy of their environment. Even though we got with them ahead of time and said, please do this, do that. Some of them were on Wi-Fi. Some of them had very poor old computers, and bless their souls, they did their best, but we got the best we could get out of it. And that was by setting up a Zoom recording rather than them recording separately and then giving us the file. Yeah, we had one that we had a live one that I think it failed right early on in the event.
Right.
It was bad. And what can you do other than reconnect with them, get them back up and try again? It's just like a live event. Virtual events have errors too. And what are you going to do?
What about automatic subtitles? Last year at the International, I saw a lot of problems, particularly with the name of our organization. There's a lot of people that don't know the difference between Qantas and Kiwanis.
Mm-hmm.
Can you automatically write in that anything sounds like that is Kiwanis?
Some programs you can. The ones that are included in the platforms, usually not. They're going to be about 80% effective, and they hear what they hear, and Kiwanis and Qantas might be confused. So it's best in that instance to find the program that you're able to preload the difficult names, the things like Kiwanis, the medical terms, or live captioners are the best way, because you get 98% accuracy, because they're basically like court stenographers, and they're used to that, and they get all those things preloaded. So Kiwanis becomes one key press rather than trying to spell it out every time. So that's the best way to do that, is with a live caption.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions tonight? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, thanks John for being with us. I'm going to stop our recording, and then we'll stay on as long as anybody else wants to stay on, or I don't know, John, what your time frame is tonight, but if anybody else has any questions or wants to ask, we will do that. But thank you so much for being with us tonight. This was great information. And I wish, thanks to Brad. Brad's actually the one that suggested we reach out to you. And I think with everybody now doing these, this has been very helpful information. Next Thursday night, which is March 11th, Shandy Longcore will be with us, who will be talking about the power of one. And then Thursday, March 18th, the Kiwanis Amplify program by Lindsay Weichel will come in and talk about the leadership program that we're doing for that day. So we're, like I said, we're continuing to book our speakers. We're moving forward, but we will officially close the session tonight. For those of you that would like to hang on, we will do that. But thank you very much, and we'll see you next week.